Today, the bears got a little bit of action. The bulls got even more. We come over and look at the fear and greed index. We are sitting at 42. So what does this mean is likely going to happen tomorrow as we look at the yield curve being uninverted? However, now it's trying to come right back to being inverted. What does this mean for tomorrow? Now we come over and look at how the indices fared across the board. The Dow was up 484 points. The NASDAQ was up 193 points. S&P 500 up 62 points. Russell 2000 up 0.58. Now, if we look at advancing issues versus declining, we had 67% of issues advancing on the day. And we come over and look at how the sectors perform across the board. Every sector was in the green except for communication services, industrials, and financials leading the way out there. And speaking of financials, we come over and look at the XLF. We can see it was able to break out a high from Friday. However, it came right back down. If you look at the top of that candle, a lot of selling was taking place. We also noticed the MACD indicator is about to cross lower. Then we jump over and take a look at the dollar index. Dollar index is looking more and more like this double bottom pattern might actually come to fruition. That'd bring the dollar all the way up here to about 103.32. But first, we must make it back above this structure breakdown point that is right above us. We come over and look at gold today. We look at gold, essentially an inside day, meaning the low was higher than the low from the prior day. The high was lower than the high from the prior day. And for all intents and purposes, we're still on track for 25.86 in gold, which completes the ABC pattern to the upside. However, when we come over and look at crude oil today having another bullish day, but unable to get back above the swing low over here. If we do, then it looks like crude oil can make it towards 71.50 to about 72. But in the meantime, if we stay below the swing point right over here, somewhere in the ballpark of 69.51, then the path of least resistance is lower. And you look at the MACD indicator, it's still crossed to the downside. Now today, there's a lot of hype out here about Apple, and Apple's events, all the new products in which they're going to announce. However, during the live stream, we kept keeping an eye on Apple, and Apple was not looking that strong. Now, once we ended the live stream at 3 o'clock, Apple took off back up here towards the moon, and Apple was actually able to get green. For a majority of the day, Apple was in the red. And speaking of being in the red, if we come over and look at the volatility index, the VIX was down 13% on this session. So what that indicates is either tomorrow or the next day is likely going to be an update for the VIX, aka the stock market could be under pressure. We look at the news for tomorrow. I don't see any major news catalysts that we need to concern ourselves with. However, that second day that we talked about with the VIX would fall on Wednesday, which is when the CPI data is slated to be released at 8:30 a.m. Let me know in the comment section down below, is the CPI reading going to be hot, or is it going to show that inflation is cooled off and basically is no longer a threat? Now we look at some of the other high flyers out there. Nvidia, last part of the day, really rocketing up towards the end. Out here on the daily chart, basically an inside day. So not a lot to see on that front. And this would make sense if we start to bounce up and around these areas and then come up and maybe set another lower high in the market. We look at Microsoft today. Microsoft was actually able to eke out a gain. However, Microsoft gapped up and then was weak throughout a majority of the day. Then we come over and look at Google. Google was in the red, down $2.58. Now, as we look at Google on the daily chart, not looking that good. And it looks like Google may be on its way down towards that 133.69 price point, completing the ABC pattern to the downside. Now, as we jump over real quick and look at small caps today having an inverted hammer in the context of a downtrend. This could be part of a reversal pattern. However, it's the weakest of all reversal signals. We look at the diamonds. The diamonds today basically have an inside day, and the diamonds have held up relatively well. They still have not been able to fill the gap over here, not even coming all the way down towards gap support. However, we come over and look at the QQQs. MACD indicator on the daily chart still looks weak. We come over and look at the candle structure, and we can see it's an inside day, meaning the high was lower than the high from the prior day. The low was higher than the low from the prior day, but as a good note, you can see sellers were able to take it down intraday, but we closed near the upper third of the range. You got to give that one out there for the bulls. Then we look out here on the 4-hour chart. Now we can see the MACD indicator is starting to try to flatten out right down towards this area. Then on the 1-hour chart, MACD indicator is already crossed to the upside. However, I'm going to warn you guys about something here in just a few moments, but we come over real quick. I want to go ahead and mark this off. Candle wick right up here to the candle body. This could be a target location for the NASDAQ. Keep in mind, the NASDAQ did gap up today, and we did not see the NASDAQ fill in the gap. However, on the 30-minute chart, this is where it's going to get a little bit dangerous because now we're still at these lower levels. And if the MACD gets back towards the zero line and we continue to consolidate, that could be nothing more than a recharge point for another leg lower. Now we come over and look at the futures markets real quick, and what do we see? Well, we can see we're starting to bounce, and today we're able to test that untested value area low, which we talked about not only as part of the first 30 minutes of the live stream where we do all the analysis, but also in Sunday's video. I said this is going to be a very high probability target. If we can stay above 18,714, then that really opens the door towards a retest of the weekly point of control at 18,938. Now, I remind everybody, Apex having a massive 80% sale off all their valuation accounts, pass in as little as 1 day. And what makes this even better is the fact that once you pass the evaluation, there's only an $85 reset fee on any account size. So if you want to take advantage of this offer, use the link in the description box down below and use promo code Mike at checkout. However, we come over and look at the daily profiles and notice we're closing right near value area high, which comes in at 18,698.25. The point of control will be down here at 18,605.75. Value area low will come in at 18,580.25. So how do I want to handle this? Well, it's going to be very simple, right? If we break above value area high and we stay above it, I'm looking for higher prices, and we've already had 1 attempt up here, 2 attempts. The 3rd attempt, we are likely going to go ahead and break and try to have some further upside testing, aka maybe towards that weekly untested point of control. Now we come over and look at the SPY real quick. The MACD indicator is still cross bearish on the daily chart, and we had an inside day. But one thing we want to do, and we talked about this on the live stream, was we want to measure from the swing high down here to the swing low using the Fibonacci retracement tool. Now the 50% level comes in right here about 551.84, and that is a normal retracement in what could still be a very bearish leg of the market. You can see we come down, fill one of the gaps. We did not make it all the way down here, filling the secondary gap at 533.17. As we dive down, we look at the 4-hour chart, MACD indicator, you can see starting to base out down at these levels. Then on the 1-hour chart, you can see the MACD indicator is already crossed, but we do have a problem. We have a gap right down below us from today that at some point is going to come back and get filled. Now, part of this morning's live stream, when we did the analysis, we marked off this structure area, and that's exactly where we came up to today. Now the question is, are we getting ready to build calls and push up and out of that area? It most certainly looks at this moment that we're going to try to have a little bit of further upside testing. Now I would classify today's volume profile shape as a D as in dog, which indicates that tomorrow could be a breakout or breakdown from this pattern. And the fact that we have an inside day also is part of a breakout or breakdown strategy as well. So we need to be on high alert for that tomorrow. Now when we come over and look at the weekly profiles for the S&P 500, notice we were able to come back and retest 5442.00, which was the weekly value area low. We've already taken that level out, right? I said in Sunday's video, this will be a very high probability target. But look, up above us, we still have an untested point of control at 5532.50. Now, we do want to be mindful of the candle count. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is the 6th consecutive up candle in a row. So the question is, are we about to have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? I don't know. We don't know yet. But the more consecutive up candles or down candles in a row, the more likely we're going to get an adverse candle in the very near future. If you look right here to the downswing, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 down candles in a row. Number 9, we started a little bit of a bounce back up. Then also, if we go ahead and we pull our fib, basically from this consolidation to this leg lower that we had, notice how far we've already retraced back up. Swing high, right down here to the swing low. We've already hit the 50% level. So are we going to go ahead and push a little bit higher, or do we start to come back, aka fill the gap in the SPY and the QQQs, and then we build some type of ABC pattern that'll bring us up towards that 5532 price point? Now, one other thing I want to bring to your attention, if we grab our Fibonacci extension tool, we measure A to B equals C to D, and we can see on Friday, we were able to complete an ABC pattern on the way down, which is also no surprise why we start to see a bounce in the markets today. Now, we come over and look at the 30-minute volume profile levels. I'm going to classify today as a P as in Paul shape profile. Now, what this indicates is if we start breaking below value area low, we're likely going to explore the lower third of the range, aka that could bring us down towards filling the gap in the SPY and the QQQs, and value area low will come in at 5456.25. The point of control will come in at 5466.75. Value area high is going to be 5481.75. Now, as we look at this, we could also make the case that we have another ABC pattern on the way up. So I want to go ahead and map this out real quick. And if we go A to B, is this impulse leg. The B to C leg is a corrective move. Then you can see the completion is right up here at 55.07. We dive back down and we start looking over here on the composite profile. 55.07 basically comes right over to here, right as we start building back into the volume area that we saw on the profile out here from last week. Now, 55.07 will essentially bring us right here towards this little distribution area on the weekly profile. But if you look over here on the composite profile, that's also this little volume distribution node right over here. So do we come up here and start to reject back down, or do we continue to push to 55.32.50? It's going to be critical because when we come out here, if we have not hit this level by tomorrow, then it's going to be important to see where the overnight volume profile comes into play. Now, if we look right here, if we break above value area high, then I want to look to target the high from today, but then I want to look to see, can we push targets all the way up here towards 55.07? I think that's a very high probability target that is likely going to get hit in the very near future. Now, if you want to learn about the micro scalping rule with My Funded Futures, check out this video right here.